Wow, that was fast. We're live. Usually takes a couple of seconds till I get the notification. Hi, everybody. It is Fabulous Friday. We're back. We're talking about consciousness. And just before we came on, Sandy and I were having a great conversation about a whole bunch of stuff that's going on right now. And I'll let you get started, Sandy.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Betty and I were talking about consciousness, and we knew last or probably through the week that that's what we were going to talk about. And in particular, what we're noticing is the manipulations that are happening. And Betty was looking at some of the Pfizer information that was recently coming out, and what awareness and consciousness is all about. I think the terms are almost interchangeable. So when you're looking at consciousness, it means that you are in that moment, that you are aware of what is going on around you. So I'm saying the collective you, but this is for each and every one of us. But when we start to see exactly what is happening and we are in our center and we're present, we can start looking at information with a greater degree of discernment. And why we're talking about this is what was happening with this information that was coming out. I think it was on FDA. There was a lot of confusion around what was going on with Pfizer. And it seems people's opinions are split. There's two different camps of whether they think it's approved or not approved. Betty and her sister have gone through and looked at the information, and I want Betty to share this. But what we're learning is the degree of manipulation that is being put into these documents to keep everybody confused. And while we're confused, we're all looking at each other. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's closer to the truth? Who's not? And it's not the point. The point is that they keep us in these lower frequencies while we're all trying to sort it out among ourselves, but we're not looking. And I'm looking up, not that they're more important than us, but we're not looking to the top of the structures to see who's actually sending out the manipulative information. So that's what we want to talk about, and why we want to talk about this. There's different sources of manipulation that we'll talk about over the next hour. But when we start to see these games, we elevate our frequency. So love is a frequency, but so is knowledge, and truth is a frequency that we can no longer be duped. So Betty, did you want to share what you found out about the Pfizer when you looked at the
as soon as it came out, what was that, on Monday or Tuesday? Went onto the website, the FDA website, and pulled down the letters, and the letter I looked at, well, actually, my sister and I, between the two of us, we have about 50 years in the industry. Read approval letters before. This was like no other approval letter we've ever read. It was very confusing, to say the least. We spent an hour parsing it out and looking at all the footnotes and everything. But our conclusion was it wasn't actually fully approved like they said. And but then you watched reports and you saw, like you said, Sandy, 50% of doctors were saying, yep, it was totally. And then the other were, nope, it's not. And so there were a few conversations back and forth, even with my sister and I, going, did we read it wrong? What's going on? And then we go back and it's like, nope. And then it's wordplay, it's all wordplay, and they make it confusing on purpose to confuse us all. But the great thing is, I sent this to Sandy, and I actually put this on our Telegram, so you can actually take a look. But I'm going to let you listen to it, if you don't mind, Sandy. Basically proves the point that, guess what? Yeah, this did not actually. It's not. It is still a play on words. Let me just pull it up.
I'm going to say hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's good to see you.
All right, so this is.
I'm going to test this out.
Can you hear it?
666. Of course. 7248.
Oh shit! Sorry, I hit the wrong button as I was trying to get the volume the highest.
Call.
Thank you for calling Pfizer's U.S. customer service. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance. The Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine has not been approved or licensed by the FDA, but has been authorized for emergency use to prevent COVID-19 in individuals 16 and older. See conditions for use at www.cvdvaccine.com. That is.
Okay, so basically they're saying it's licensed. and licensure is very different. And from the letter, it's really hard to understand what it sounded like. Just basically they were acknowledging documents more so than anything else. The funny thing was, we noticed too, for all drug names, there's usually a little R or TM at the top because it's registered or trademarked, and you don't sell it till it's registered or trademarked. And that was not in the letter, was another thing we found. So what exactly was it? I'm not, because they really did mess with the wording, but it did not sound, it continues on the EUA. And that's what this recording also said. So it's either fully approved or it's on an EUA. It's not both.
And it's designed to be manipulative because nobody will be accountable, because they'll say, well, it wasn't registered, so there will be no judge or anybody or any kind of a patent office who's accountable. So this is all to dodge responsibility. The other thing that came out of that was it's to be used for emergency measures only, which means they have to go back and do a lockdown to be able to justify using it. So and the funny thing about a lot of these messages, they are actually talking to the darkness and telling them this is what's coming. So they use the same technology. They use the same media outlets. They use the same media outlets to be able to share the information of what they want the darkness to know. And the example, I'm going to use an example with the sex ed that was happening in Ontario. The National Post posted an MP and an MPP who did not agree with it. It goes out on front page of a business newspaper because the word went out. You do not support these two. They want to stop the sex ed that sexualizes children. So we start to see that this is the same game that they play throughout to manipulate. So yes, the words are used to confuse us. So we're all looking at each other's interpretation and not looking at what the game is. It's designed for them to communicate with each other to say, look, we're not on the hook anywhere. So we still are raising our consciousness. This is where we're going with this, to see the game at a higher level. I think this is fantastic that people are picking up on this.
It's funny. Okay, so Jen says it's plausible deniability, and that's what I've said. It's plausible deniability. They mess around with it. It's like, well, I'm sorry, that's what you thought. Well, there's
Totally.
lots of headlines saying they've got it, the approval fully. Then you've got them saying it's they're parsing words, and it's like, well, no, but we said it's only EUA and blah blah blah. But the interesting thing, Sandy, I think Jen actually, I think it was you, Jen, wasn't it, that I was talking to you earlier this week, and you'd mentioned that we've actually been, the United States, not Canada, but the United States has actually been in a state of emergency since World War II, not 9/11. I was like, 9/11, no. World War II. They have never actually canceled the state of emergency since World War II. Imagine that.
So everything they're doing is legal. Isn't that an interesting point, right?
Yeah.
And we start to see how the game is played from a higher bird's eye perspective. We see this, the Human Trafficking Act in Canada. They put one MP's name on it, Joyce Smith. But when you read that document, it's like a regurgitated meal. It doesn't make sense. But the end of it, I spent 40 hours on that document. But at the end of it, 95% of the human trafficking happens within the borders of Canada. Mm-hmm. 95% of the funding is to agencies on the outside of Canada. So you start to realize how all the systems need to come down, is why I'm bringing this in beside what we're talking about with Pfizer. This is the game. This is how it's played. It's how they get away with all of this, right?
Well, when we recognize it, that's when we raise our consciousness that they are parsing words. They are actually purposefully manipulating language, which Jen and I are going to talk about on Monday, about the spell casting, especially in the English language, which I'm really excited about. And Eric, I did see yesterday, just so you know, because I know you sent me a bunch of stuff, especially yesterday, Eric. I happened to see it last night, but I had a huge migraine yesterday. I was not looking at anything, but I will be getting back to you. So I'm not ignoring you. I saw it, but I haven't gotten back to you yet. And he actually says it reminds him of a song by Space Buddha, Mental Hotline. I don't know that song, but I'm going to look it up.
When we look at there's a YouTube video titled War Castles, and it's Sergeant Robert Horton, I think is his name, and he outlines what is going on with all the admiralty law. So people are advanced enough here, and I'm sure many people have seen this already. They understand it. But he talked about what they hijacked was the periodic table, the grammar, syntax, and he talks about parsing the language. Everything is done backward. And so there's another fellow, I think his name is David, I'm going to say Webb, but I think I got that wrong. But he was a partner with Russell J. Gould, who had put on seminars, like 9 hours of instruction of how the whole language is set up backward. And for the people who can follow it, it is wild to watch. So Russell J. Gould, I believe, spells his name with semicolons or colons and spaces, and it's all backward. When we look at the nursery rhyme, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. This was all part of the programming because our names are supposed to go to the top of documents, not at the bottom of documents. So everything. So it's going to be interesting with what you guys are talking about on Monday, because the manipulation is so extreme in every aspect of what we think is the language, grammar. The periodic table, they say, is only half of what it's supposed to be. So us waking up is helping us to to go into the higher levels of awareness, which is going to bring us closer to the 5, what they call the 5th dimension.
Right.
Right. To the 3rd and the 5th. And I'll just follow that.
On my end, little static, and I just had to move my mic a little.
Okay.
So there.
So when we're talking about consciousness, there's so many people posting great information, and it's really confusing sometimes of what to take. But my understanding of the consciousness is all energy is consciousness, and consciousness is the energy of the polarities of the positive and the negative. So sometimes people are telling us, oh, stay positive. And when we can see the chaos that's going around us and not get emotionally charged or emotionally influenced or negatively getting a negative emotion out of it, this is what's going to help us stay in the center, the 0 point energy, and watch what's going on around us, but not to be deep sixed. So taking action in a positive, and we're doing that by getting as much information out as we can as it comes up, because we're still taking positive action, even though we're in chaos.
Yep.
We're not getting, and even if we fall a little bit or for a short period of time, we're pulling ourselves back up, right? So I'm just going to put this out here. So our souls are positive. Our souls are what are going to take us into the 5th dimension, because that's where our emotion or truth is, our connection is. So if we can set our soul aside and look at the negative that's going on around us, and when we understand that the negative has to do what it's doing right now, because it's in for the fight of its life. It has no choice but to play these games, to manipulate, to cause harm. But when we can see it without giving it any kind of a judgment, and that's kind of, I like how we're talking about this. Yep, we just went through, and you and your sister went through and looked at the document. It's been an hour. It's not what we think it is. But we're not speaking in an emotionally charged manner. We're not letting it get the best of us. You know what I mean? We're not letting it deep six us.
It gives you power to, that's the message I tried to give on Wednesday with Patty is when you realize that this struggle that they're having to keep control of us it's a power struggle, and we have to stand up and say, guess what? You don't have power over me. Exactly. I push back. And when we push back, it's just like the bully. You know what? Once you smack the bully in the face, he backs off. That's what's going to happen, because these people are just being bullies.
And so does everyone else back off. So does everyone else back off when you smack the bully. Now I'm getting feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I guess the powers that be don't like this conversation.
And this is interesting.
Okay. So that's okay. We're pushing back. You've got to keep pushing, because they're going to keep pushing. If we don't give any resistance, we're not going to win. We're not going to get to where we want to go.
And the negative's job is to sabotage us. So you might get knocked down 10 times, but keep going. It'll be the 11th time that we break through, and that will collapse the 3 and the 5D. We collapse them together because we are going to stay in our physical reality. So it's not, I don't see it just that we're going to jump to a higher dimension. We're going to bring those two together and get rid of the nonsense that's happening. So it's interesting. You had a migraine yesterday and haven't had one for years. And I thought about this morning after you told me, right? So I'm having technology annoys me to no end. I'm not great at it. I think the last time I was on the planet was a 1700. So I know what I like for cars. I know I like a sunroof, heated seats, blah, 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 pretty color, and can't sound like a sewing machine. Buy me a car. You know what I mean? So guess what I got attacked with yesterday? 2 of my emails were down. So that would have put me in a tailspin normally. That would have just flustered me to no end. So then you go and you get the people to help you figure this out, figure out what you've got to do to communicate. My point is we're all going to start getting knocked down in different ways, perhaps. Don't take it personally.
No. And, I was able to get past it without any drugs. And that's the first time, I'll be honest. It's been years, but, go to my, my Advil and handfuls. But I was like, yesterday, like, as much as this is horrible and I was nauseous and it was just really ugly. And it's been 2 days. So the nausea started before, not feeling good the day before. And then yesterday was just,
the crescendo?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But by evening, just before I went to bed, I felt like it was in a barometric pressure, I think, played into it. Because after we got rain here, because it's been hot and freaking humid. It was like 34 degrees yesterday. And it was stifling.
Yeah,
so we got rain in it, and it lifted that humidity and stuff. The headache started to lift. Not 100%, but this morning I don't actually have one, so that's good.
Very nice.
Feeling still a little tender, but not bad.
So I wanted to talk a bit about the AI and how it's used. My understanding is they're using the artificial intelligence. They're using the technology of the AI to send us negative energies, negative thought forms. This is why it was created, to put a bit of a ceiling over us. When we look at the social media and some of the posts that we're seeing, it can drop our emotions, but this is the idea. So it's no longer just the media who is doing this. The social media, the technology itself is designed to lower our frequencies. We can still observe, and I'm going to jump a bit to the media. Was it you who said the NBC just interviewed the head of the Taliban? Oh, but they wouldn't interview Trump, but they know how to find the head of the Taliban. Some of these things we just start to laugh at because we realize the absurdity. And if it's almost like somebody's trying to entertain us to keep us from looking at what is really going on behind the scenes. And I know that JB was out, I think yesterday, gave a speech about what was happening in Afghanistan, and he called it ISIS-K. And when you do the gematria on ISIS-K, I is a 1, I is a 9, S is a 1, I is a 9, S is a 1, and K is a 1. So it's 91911. So are they giving codes to themselves, or is someone trying to tell us just how absurd this really is? It's pretty funny. And yes, it's scary. It is totally scary what we're going through, but we have a choice on whether we drop into the panic that they're trying to instill in us, or whether we kind of just stand back and just, as you're saying, no, punch the bully in the nose, right?
Yeah, and we don't even have to, you don't have to, it's standing your ground and no, not your absurdity. That's what we're living. And that's the gaslighting, right? Because when nothing makes sense, you fall into that fear. You fall into the believing them, well, they must know, but why are they saying this and then that? And standing in, and that's the consciousness rising, is when you see through the bullshit.
And this is part of what the technology, what I'm researching right now is the free energy is not the technology with the power. It's our human bodies that have the knowledge within our own consciousness. And this is why they want to alter the DNA, because the DNA will not let us shift from the 3rd to the 5th. And even if we look at that as the part of that V word is here to design to stop us from connecting to the God source energy or connecting with our soul. That's what all of that is designed for. So it's our body is made of resonance, and magnetic fields call for a certain resonance. And this is why with all the alphabet soup and the word games and the manipulations of the words, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and if we can bring our energy up to the frequency of love without saying the words, I'm wondering if that will help bring in the shift, because the words just seem to give us reason to disagree with each other. Mm-hmm. So that was a big one for me to figure that out.
Yeah. And there's so much discord, and there's been a lot of manipulation even in the truth community. Let's get real. And
some of it is, and some of it is just not knowing. But so let's talk about the truth community. Here we go, looking at each other instead of saying, no, the powers that be who are turning a blind eye, or the people who own, maybe they have businesses, or they're high ups in corporations, or they're high up in government that don't want to lose their material wealth. Let's start looking at those people instead of the people. What do they call the truthers? Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday. The people we call truthers are not, they're just basically the new media. They're not telling, they're just, so why are we calling them truthers? Like, am I a truther? I don't see me as a truther. I see somebody who's looking
it's
to
the label we've given them. And I think, and the thing is I don't have a problem with, and I do watch a lot of stuff, but it's remembering, and we've talked about this a lot, it's discernment. And no one person has all the answers. And when they say they do, then be careful. I've also, especially on BitChute, what I've noticed is a lot of fear mongering. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. This is happening. This is how they're doing this to us. You're going to die. And it's like, what the fuck? I actually was like, just in the last little while, it's like, okay, you know what? Yes, this is happening. I want to see solutions, and how do we combat it? And the way we combat it is actually calling out the bullshit of it. And if you don't know how to read a document like that, the approval letter, supposed approval letter, and parse out those documents and find somebody who can, or we can, that's what I want to do. I mean, because
like you said, it's hard.
I said it wasn't on the next day. And you said, you had somebody who read it. I'm like, we spent an hour on this freaking document, parsing it out online, and doesn't sound like it. And then I saw videos that said yes, and then I saw some that said no, and then it was like, what the fuck? I'm confused. And I went back to the document again, and I'm like, nope, still seeing the same thing. And then what we listened to today, that pretty much tells me that no, it hasn't. It's still on an EUA. And so it's this confusion. We have to just keep moving forward with what you truly know in your heart. I knew after I read it, no, it wasn't.
Hang on, if it's still saying that we are in the Emergency Measures Act or whatever that is since World War II, it does apply now. So they're messing with us. The bottom line is they are messing with the public.
Oh no, I'm talking about the approval doesn't count.
That's what I'm saying. But if we are still in the U.S. is still under the Emergency Measures Act, it is applied today, because they say when it'll apply under the Emergency Measures Act. So it's a game, is what I'm saying. That they're covered every end of it. So nobody's right and nobody's wrong. But this is where we're looking at each other. So I know somebody recently came out and said, we're in this for another 10 years and Sarah's not happening. That person is using an emotional index to forecast his predictions, and he knows they're going to change. So if we can get our vibration up higher into a more coherent and more stable emotional frequency that doesn't fluctuate up and down as much, that will change his predictions. He can make all the predictions he wants. He's funny. I enjoy him. Doesn't matter who it is. I quite enjoy him, but I don't agree. But I'm looking at the index that he's using. Well, we can manipulate that index by raising our frequency and holding a steady emotional bandwidth ourselves. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
They want us dazed and confused, and you're right, because when you're confused,
you're easy to manipulate.
You're easy to manipulate because you don't know what's right and what's wrong. And it's about tuning in and being able to feel it. You said something earlier, and I about how our bodies know everything. Right? We have it all within us. I was watching Max Egan, and brilliant man. And he said something really profound, actually. And this goes to language again. Jen, thank you, because you've got me really paying attention to language these days. And then you pick these things up that people talk about. And he was talking about how we go and research, right? We go and research. What does the prefix re mean? When you redo something, it's basically you're doing it again. And why are we researching? Because we have all the knowledge within us, but we have forgotten. So we have to search for it.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Everybody's looking still outside, and that's great because it's going to help us. But people are still reluctant to go in and just sit with yourself and sit empty. Because when you're empty, that's when you can start asking yourself questions. What is true, you can start feeling the energy in your body, one layer over, 1 inch outside your body. Just feel what's going on in the field around you. Part of the problem is there's a lot of projection happening right now. People are saying, everybody blank. everybody's here, everybody's there, everybody's in this state. We can't speak like that anymore because we can't speak for everybody. And just as I'm saying, some of these people are projecting by saying, we're going to be in this for 10 more years of just hell. That's a projection that can land on people who aren't strong enough to say, I really enjoy your stuff, but I'm not buying. I think there's better ways that we can raise our frequency if we choose. Notice when I say if we choose, it's no control in there, just solution-based, raise it up. The negative knows how this works. The darkness knows that everything is a hologram. They know that if they can change our perception of what is going on, they can change our hopes, our dreams, what we want to achieve, what we think is possible. And it's us not going into this that I think is going to help us in the long run, that we're not buying in. So, so I look at the whole structure. It needs to fall.
Oh, yeah. And it will.
Totally.
It will. It has to. Yeah. And it has to because, and like I said on Wednesday, you know what? We are, how many people have said we're the hero you're looking for? You are your own hero. And it's that saying stop. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. It's when you stand up for yourself, you're becoming your own hero. And on the Nasara dream, Noletta saying that she's had Nasara dreams, that she's received huge stacks of computer generated checks. Hopefully they're cashable, but yes, wouldn't that be nice?
And here's the other thing with the computers, can they alter our dreams? I don't want to go too far down this one today. They'll take us, I think, too far off the topic. But I've had certain dreams, and I know people are having dreams, and we have to ask, are these dreams a manipulation on what a fear maybe we have or something that we want and we're clinging on to? I agree, Noella, that all that is going to start happening. But what is going to happen is if everybody gets the same amount of money, that's just going to jack up hyperinflation. There's got to be even more to that's going on. So we have to go deeper into the Jacera and Nasara. I like the fact you're having the dreams because it's leading toward the positive, totally, 100%. But we still have to go further into understanding the Jacera and the Nasara and how it can work.
I think, I think with we were talking earlier before we came on and about how a lot of these corporations you thought that these corporations aren't going to exist.
They're not going to.
I think that even if we had stacks of money, there's not going to be all this stuff to buy. So it's going to be a very different way to spend it. And it's really, I think it's a transition over time, probably at least a generation where we're going to be moving out of this money currency thing because we're the only ones who live on this planet and have to pay to live,
Can you imagine a squirrel not being able to cross a fence because that was another squirrel's property? Like we're the stewards of the land, but we have ourselves convinced that we own this piece. And yeah, I can see that we need an area that we can, have, I'm going to use the word dominion over or stewardship over, whether it's growing sustenance for us and food and things like that, and a place to put a roof over your head, especially with the climates we have. But I agree that a lot of this is going to change. But in the meantime, we do need money because it's
going to be a transition because we're too programmed for it. So it's going to be at least a generation. It's going to take at least one generation to start to see the true devolution from it. But it's a really nice idea that we don't need it. It's not necessary. We don't need it. We don't need money to travel. We don't need money. I didn't realize that our passports came after World War I. Did you know that? Passports to travel did not start till after World War I. You could travel freely to anywhere you wanted to go without documentation.
And that's interesting. Lakota Indians, my understanding was at a certain time of the year, they would migrate north and go up to the Aurora Borealis, to the Northern Lights. And that was part of their ceremony of taking in the earth energies as the kaleidoscope of the colors would interact within their bodies. Then the border comes in and they can't migrate to Canada. So who are the only people who do not have to honor borders are the politicians, the government, the media, or the military, anybody who has diplomatic immunity, but they're the ones doing the trafficking and the stealing.
Because they have there's no repercussions for them because they have immunity, and there should be no one who has immunity because that only breeds corruption. If I can never be thrown in jail for all the heinous things I do, of course, gives you license to do whatever the hell you want. Just store stocked, yes, for the most part.
So
what?
let's go back Can we go
I'm
back
gonna
to
be
just
honest,
Sarah?
some stores are not, and that's more retail, not food, food stocked.
I'm
But
told Costco's the top shelves aren't as don't have as much stuff, but maybe there's, like you said, a reason that we're not making stuff. I just had a dishwasher break down last week. I happened to get one that was in the back, like they had so many in house where I bought it. They said it's a 4-month waiting time. And to look at a barbecue, they said Napoleon barbecues, you can't even place an order as a retailer. You can't place an order until February of next year. So there is going to be things that are running out of stock, but maybe we're not going to need to cook food. Like, who knows?
yeah, and Teresa says she sees passports going out. I mean, out. Yes, and I agree. I think we're going to go back to that where I don't know how long these things will take, and maybe that's what he's talking about. It's going to take 10 years, and it may. I think like about five years to really straighten a lot of things out, because
I said, yeah, we can decide ourselves by what we are projecting out there on the collective. Do we like the 10-year number? No.
No. And I don't mean this hell we're living right now with the power struggles that are going on. I'm talking about after the power struggles and the rebuilding, and I think that's what that person's talking about too. The rebuilding phase will take a while,
Even longer. Yeah.
How exciting!
Yeah.
That's what I actually said to someone just recently. They were all caught up in this whole like approval thing, and I was like, you know what? Instead of you got all the information you need on that. We've got a lot of information on so many things. Instead of focusing on it and trying to dig deeper, there's nowhere to dig. It's like, yeah, they're lying. Period. Done. Let's move on. Why not? You have so many skills. What can you bring to the table on the other side of this and create something beautiful from the skills that you have? And maybe you can be a leader of this section of something in your community. And how we can, because we ended up talking about schools too. And she was saying, everybody should be like, with all the craziness of schools right now, people should come together in their neighborhoods and pay one person to.
Right. And I think that's going to start coming.
And I'm like, absolutely. And that's a great idea. Why aren't you thinking about the skills you have, how those are transferable to the future, and start thinking about that and how you can create something better with it? And then when we put our consciousness there, we create it instead of focusing on what's going on now on a continuum, because we do focus on it. We're talking about it, obviously. So you and I are both looking at it as well. And I'm sure everybody here is.
But I'm not looking at it because I think it's not like I'm not looking at it that it's a negative that's going on. I'm looking at it just watching the game to see who the players are, because sooner or later, as you're saying, we're going to, like, more people are starting, I think, to look at what is possible, but we still have to be able to take the full structures out. So you have to look at the supervisory structures, like you have to look at the manipulations, even outside of government. And I'll give an example. Somebody I know has been invited out for lunch, and the people that are inviting her out for lunch are heavy hitters in finance, computers. I think some of them are pharmaceuticals, but they want her to go into her community and promote the, or the passport. And I'm like, you realize you're getting set up. They're taking you to lunch so they can all jump you to get you to say yes. So the manipulations in the business world, working on certain organizational groups, like there's a lot to go on that we can see of what is happening. But I totally agree that all the creativity is what's taken out right now. Those are the businesses, a lot of them, that are not allowed to come back into fashion. People aren't allowed to go to conferences in Ontario here. We're not allowed to go to maybe holistic health fairs, like all the good things. So people are going to have to find a way to create some of this in their own. When Catherine Austin Fitz, do you know who she is?
I've heard her name. I can't place it at the moment, but I do know the name. So
she's strong in the financial markets. She's talking in the United States about, instead of going to the big banks, go to your local banks. We also know gaming the game, and we've seen this in the healthcare industry, where all of a sudden someone will come up with an organic product or a homemade product that they've been able to make it more on a not mass production, but a larger scale. The Tides and the Palmolives come in and buy it up. So she's saying go to the local credit unions. Well, we know if they start getting bigger, that the big banks have so much money, they're going to go buy them up. So we still have to see the game, know the game, and find other ways that you're not even going to let them into your circle. So that's where a lot of this falling down is going to be. That's what I see it anyways.
I think it's all going to fall, maybe not all at once, but it's going to be quick. It's going to be quick because when the masses see what we see and start to realize that they've been lied to and they've been gaslit, and this has all been, it's been a joke, right? It's a joke.
It is a joke.
It's laughable when on the other side of this.
But not everybody wants the other side. They're stuck in their lower dimensions and they don't know anything else is possible. And they're going to hang on to the money world. And we don't know what they're going to do. And it doesn't matter. We'll cross it when we get there, right?
Well, and that's, people have a choice. And you either
Everybody's
come
got a
along or you get out of the way, basically. And that's that great divide. I've said many times, people are picking their camps. They're picking them. And those who don't want to, get this and feel like they're forced, they're, like I said on Wednesday, go watch that one, because this is where you stand up. Fall and fail hard. Yes, I agree with you on the Canadian government's to fall and fail hard. I don't know if you guys saw, but our illustrious Prime Minister got booed and heckled in Surrey when he was there, couldn't walk down the street. And didn't I say in a show, I don't even remember whose show it was, just recently, that their Bush Senior had made there's a quote of his that if they knew what we were doing, we wouldn't be able to walk down the street. Well, was that just a quote, a saying, or is that prophecy? I think
it's interesting. It could be, right?
Walk down the street. He was getting booed and heckled and being called all kinds of names, and I think he was called a killer and all kinds of stuff, called out on the genocide. And security had to get him away. And I'm like, yes, there you go. You can't walk down the street safely.
And it's interesting because I talked to Karen one time. She went to one of his meetings, JT's town halls, when he came into Saskatoon, and she got there early and sat and waited. And they brought people into the audience and they gave them a placard with their questions. So even the town hall meetings are all staged for everybody. They bring the people that they want in there. They let the people they call upon to read the questions out. The person gets told what the question is. So that is going to make them, if we stop going to their town hall meetings and force them to have to come out to see us, this is where you hit them on the street, because they can't control the street. So that's a perfect example of.
And that's what it was. It was him walking down the street. I saw the video and I was like,
yes.
Yes. And that has to happen more. Like the premier in Alberta got that during Canada Day. And, it's nice to see Canadians finally stand up, because I have never met a more placid people.
You know what, though? What do you stand up to? And the example is, they've manipulated at every level. They've got the manipulations out there, whether they're trying to hijack certain ethnic groups, whatever they're trying to do. When you look up the food chain in the universities, someone writes a thesis, you've got to hand it into that professor. If that professor is a dirty dog, they're going to say, well, no, you don't have this right, and you have to change your thesis or you don't get a passing grade. So it's not that we're not wanting to stand up. How many people have stood up and been knocked back down or shut off or cut off? So it's the system is the problem, not the people.
100%.
Many people have stood up, but it's just so corrupt.
But
So
now,
as
as a collective, we're standing up, and that is a good thing. And that's giving the bull. And I mean, guess what? Lots of people saw that he couldn't walk down the street without getting booed and called all kinds of names and stuff. That tells you the mood of Canada. His busload of supporters didn't help him there, because real Canadians are showing him that he's not top dog. We don't believe him anymore. You don't have it. Well, I don't know who respected a freaking drama teacher as the head of a country, for God's sakes.
Well, I don't believe we did, honestly. I think it's still the Dominion voting machines were all part of that as well,
100%.
because they were in Toronto, supposedly found on Shepherd Ave, which is in Chinatown, on the second-story building, which was shared with Mr. Soros. And you start looking at everything, and it is so connected. If we see, it's almost like a spider web that you can see how one ring of the web is connected to the next one when we see it in totality. So it's fantastic that we're seeing how this is playing out. And at the same time, not just watching it without judging the negative, but seeing it and knowing we do not accept this going forward, which is part of the change, right?
Seeing it for what it is. And And you know, and we're talking about Cam, but it's all over. Like, people are seeing Biden for who he is. People are seeing Macron for who he is. People are seeing their leaders all over the world for who they are when they're actually creating this disaster. You know, I don't know the name of the leader in Australia. Look what's going on there. You look at what's going on in Italy too, and all the UK. We're seeing, and they know we can see them. They're very frightened right now, and that's a good place to be. They're on the defensive now.
And we're learning how to maneuver in this structure of positive and negative consciousness. So we maneuver ourselves by observing what's going on in the negative, not judging, but creating the positive. And when we know how to do that, that is how we still stay above it and keep slowly elevating our frequencies into the more coherent energies of love and peace and wanting harmony and working together and a lot of neat things like that, right?
Yeah, sorry. I gotta. Oh, where are you? Okay.
So it's our soul that goes into 5D. When we are looking at the physical, that's our physical vessel that they want to poison with DNA modifiers and what have you not. I've watched a video, I've seen a few videos now that how it's changing the structure of the blood cells. So instead of a round cell, now it's a different shape. I don't know if the shapes are coherent with growths on it, but it is our soul that is going to take us into the fifth dimension, because the fifth dimension is etheric and our souls are etheric. We want to bring our bodies through with us. And I can't remember if it was posted this morning about all the different ways they're trying to poison our physical vessel. And it's not working because we are resilient and we're rising above the cleaning products that aren't good for us and the skin products that aren't good for us and the air interference and what have you, right? But when we know that we feel inside our body, consciously connecting with our body, that's when we're going to go through the 5D, but it's our soul that's going to lead us. Who was it telling me that they wanted to bring their dog through with them? And they said, don't love your dog when you're thinking about whatever changes are coming. Consciously bring your dog, make your dog one with you and bring it through. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I just thought that was an interesting perspective, you know, like love to mess them with
I know
this.
some people say that they're on like dogs are I can't remember who was it. Dogs are 2D. And I'm like, you know what? Obviously you haven't met my dog, because my dog has more sensory perception than I do. And that cannot be 2D.
So they say plants and animals are two-dimensional. And maybe that isn't for, I don't know if that means for all animals or not, but I don't know if that applies to intuition, because they know when to get out of a storm. Like they still have a lot. Maybe that was just a way of quantifying the structure. Like 1D is single cell, 2 plant and animals, 3 is human, which is not true because we know now we're 12. So it could have been somebody's, and I might have even said that or thought that at one point.
No, I don't remember you saying it, but it's fine, but guess what? They're sentient beings. It's very different than a plant.
Plants are sentient too. If you light a match near a plant, it shrivels up. So it's fantastic that we're asking all these questions.
You know, I can't imagine that these precious animals will be left behind, because, you know, they're actually helping guide us through this. You know, I'm sorry, I wouldn't have made it through without my dog. You know, when my dad passed, she was right there to comfort me through all of this, not being alone in the lockdowns and everything else. That's who got me through.
Yeah.
Having somebody to care for and somebody who loves me. Right, baby?
And when we look at that, so some of us are alone right now, and it's okay to love being alone because you're connecting your divine. So there's not one better than another. It's what you need to do, right? And knowing what you need to do is the right thing for your growth at the time you're in. And it might change tomorrow, and that's okay, because it's about everybody choosing for themselves. This is the key to all of this, I think, is that we go and strengthen ourselves collectively.
And I'm going to say, and cats here. Dogs are a gift from God. And the cats, because I've had cats too. I can't have them because, well, allergies now. But having animals and something to care for is an amazing thing. It really does bring out a lot of love and compassion and caring. If you didn't know what love was, have an animal.
And it's okay. Let's just keep this on the human. Like, let's look at the human side of this as well, because it's the human consciousness. Think of how cattle know to run the same way, or fish swim the same way, or birds all know to change at the same time. It's the human consciousness that has been hijacked from each other. So yes, it's great to have pets. I've had pets for many years. I don't have one right now, but it's our collective consciousness that we're trying to connect, because we can shift with the human mind into a different frequency. But obviously we're struggling with words. I'm wondering if that's why all the languages were created, to keep us all confused and not able to communicate. But if we can communicate emotionally by raising our frequency, then you want love. And it doesn't matter if it's dogs, cats, people, it's all the above with you. I know all that. And I want the same, but it doesn't mean we're going to say it the same way. But if we can get our frequency that high. I was just at a crystal shop and we ordered some crystal, what do you call them? Singing bowls tuned to the F vibration, which is the heart vibration. And we were using them in the store, practicing in the store, and you can just feel your heart chakra opening. We can get to those levels without words. No, we want the best, whatever that is, and let go of the outcome, then maybe we are going to shift even into a higher dynamic. I don't know. That's why I think it's so important to stay positive.
Well, and that makes me think of, the Tartaria and those amazing organs in many churches that are often never used or destroyed. And, there is a theory that they were used for healing, the tone healing, because the tone of a pipe organ is very different than anything else. And in those churches that had them, those windows were open so that the frequency could go through a town, and it would be like healing energy is what people think, which I think it's profound. Like if you can actually, instead of sending all this shit that we get every day from these cell towers and everything else, our machines, this healing energy. And that's what we're supposed to have to give us the longevity. We're supposed to be able to live far longer than we do. There's
it's
so
interesting. It's interesting with the churches, and I know I've talked to different First Nations people that said that they were pagan sites originally, and then the certain religion from Italy came in and hijacked those sites and put their own structures on it. Some people are of the opinion the reason they're not allowed to go into the churches right now is because the frequencies have been designed for the Nephilim to be able to hijack the energy out of the congregation. So there's both sides are being played right now and put out there. And it's like music should be at 432 hertz. It should be attuned to 432, but it's 440A. Both of those are profound. But let's say, Betty, what if it is wrong now, but because the structures are in place, they can be changed to do exactly what you just said?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean it's static or because it was one way, it can't be different.
The one thing I do like about Max Egan is he says, all of this technology, it wasn't that long ago that we used it. They've obfuscated our history, and it's all right there. It's actually at our fingertips. When things change, we can actually go to a lot of this stuff very quickly because the infrastructure is still there.
Yes.
And I think that is very cool. So that means we do have things to learn on how to use it, but then it's that going back inside the research. And when this veil is lifted, I believe we're going to be able to find, because everything, all knowledge is within our own cells, which, I think we agree on that. And it's that going back and finding it again. It's that sleep we were put in, that deep sleep that, when you come to Earth and you forget everything. Well,
the delta wave.
we're going to come back to it and probably not all at once. It probably blow your mind, but it's going to be a gradual, I just know. And that is cool to think of, like, one day we're just going to know.
And encouraging everybody to do that for themselves instead of looking at anyone else, including us. We're just sharing what we know at this point in time. Do it for ourselves, each and everybody. And do it if you have children, encourage them to do it for themselves. What do you know about that tree? What do you think about? What do you think about when you see that tree? And start asking the questions and helping us connect back to the natural elements. I see that helping, but it's about everybody on their own journey and asking themselves for this. But that's the big takeaway I'm finding. And just staying positive in this is because the positive frequencies are what's going to be helping us through the ascension cycle. We're still going to have aches and pains. We're still going to have things come through, solar energies, earth energies. We're talking about a hurricane supposedly in Hudson Bay. I didn't know hurricanes could be producing cold weather, but hey, is it just another manipulation? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're just going to watch it and see the games that they play. And when we start not believing in the lies anymore, it's like when you're trying to get out of a bad relationship, the first thing you do is stop believing the lies. And we're at that stage that, okay, we've given you more than enough time to get your shit together. This is to the darkness. You choose not to, that's okay, but we're going to do it for ourselves now. That's kind of where we're at like this is a comparison, right?
100%. And it becoming the observer instead of wrapping yourself in the drama of what's going on, and be the observer of it and watch how they're slowly destroying themselves. It's actually very entertaining.
ISIS K 911. Hey Biden, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you said it.
It's ridiculousness. And then they come out with there's a lot of propaganda, like the whole what was going on with some of the women, and he's like, that's Western propaganda. They just called it out. And I don't know if it's true or not, if they're doing that, but Western propaganda, I believe there's a lot of that NBC. And then he basically said, when they brought up 9/11, he's like, Taliban were part of that, and some Obama, Bin Laden he had nothing to do with it.
No, and then many people have come out and said that, and there's been reports. Somebody
But
came
it
out
was on NBC News. Somebody just calling it out that no, that's not the truth. That's the key. It's NBC News that actually reported it, right?
It could be interesting if they're being forced now to tell the truth. And I wonder if people will believe them if they're telling the truth, or whether they'll still believe the narrative of the negative. It's gonna be fun to watch.
It's gonna become the observer instead of getting yourself wrapped up in it. It actually becomes more entertaining. It's not always easy to hold that line, but
we're getting better at it. And let's say, look at the extremes, like maybe reactions, you're going in extremes, but as you get better at it and practice and let things go, you're going to find you're still going to always move in a band, because we're human, we're emotion, like we're energy in motion, right? But we're not going to be taken off our game. Yeah. We're just going to ebb and flow, just like the kelp in a seabed, right? And then we're all going to dance together and start to see, we're not buying into this. So I have a lot of faith. I've always kept my faith, always have a lot of hope for the future. I know things are going to turn out, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be rocky. But, do the best you can and protect ourselves the best we can, prepare the best we can, even emotionally and spiritually, and have fun.
And that's it. There's a lot of different kinds of prepping. It's not just you have food and water, though that is important too. We just don't know. With the tankers being stuck in China and nothing coming through, that's why.
That's a good thing.
It probably is a good thing.
Remember the melamine in the dog food? Oh, sorry, mea culpa. They said, I'm sorry, we poisoned your dog. We have poison and going into the dog food. That was a big thing in China. And then just as you're talking about loving your pets, and then your pet gets sick and maybe doesn't make it, and then you're heartbroken, and that lowers the frequency again. Like there's so much pain and suffering that we need to look at this, right?
Yeah. And it's our frequency is going to be on a constant, and it's weird. As long as you are up high more than you're low, it actually evens it all out. And that's really key. Everybody's not going to be able to stay up like, I'm love and light all the time. No. That's the garbage new age movement. Everybody's happy all the time. No, that's not even possible. All emotions are critically important because we need to be able to understand them.
Right.
When you understand them, it actually helps elevate you. And knowledge of who you are is the key.
And it's through our senses that we elevate in consciousness. This is how we feel our way into the higher dimensions, right? I'd like to thank everybody, all the late joiners. I know some people have just come on recently.
Tons. And I actually wanted to say, Brenda said she couldn't make it without us. We're all in this. We're doing this together. This is a community. We've created a community. And I don't mean all like the collective, all everybody, because you know what? You guys all know I don't buy into that. Like we are all one. No, we're not. But in this group, we've got each other's backs. That's the way I look at it. If you guys tell me something's going on, I will be the first to say, hey, we need to send good energy here, like for Noletta last week, or for Robin, and for Deb when she was going through her stuff. And we help, even though we don't live in the same places. We can energetically support one another, and that's key.
And it changes from one day to the next, because you feel something one day or one moment doesn't mean 10 minutes later it's not going to change. And it doesn't mean you're emotionally bipolar. It just means that energy isn't there. You know, yesterday I was working with somebody and we're feeling the energy, and we go out, feel it in our body, 1 inch out, 1 foot, 10 feet, a mile. Then you work your way into your community. You work your way into your province. We worked our way into Canada. We worked our way toward the US. We're trying to feel the energy, just feel it. And the energy in the US was somebody was sneaky trying to get in. And I'm like, oh, that was interesting. But it doesn't mean that's what we feel today. Maybe it would be a different feeling because we have a breakthrough, but all of them are okay. You're just observing.
Absolutely. And, Amber is saying, thanks for saying that, because she fluctuates. We all fluctuate. I fluctuate. Yeah. Sandy fluctuates. I don't, if you say you don't, I don't believe you, because it's part of the human condition. Or
you've taken the jab and you've lost all sense of self.
Yeah. It's part of the human condition. We'll always, because that's life. Guess what? Shit happens, and we're not going to always be love and light. That's garbage, pure bullshit. We need to be able to connect to all of it. We have all of these emotions for a reason.
Sometimes you should be in fear.
Yes.
If you're in danger, you should be afraid. That's a regular. You should know if you're going to take a shortcut through an industrial complex that's closed at night, that you're putting yourself at risk. If you get the intuition, don't do it. Then go around, even if it takes you another 20 minutes to get where you need to go. Trust yourself always. We always say that, but trust yourself.
Yeah, and that all of those emotions are there for a reason, and they're not bad. It's not good and bad. It's just necessary at a time. And instead of labeling everything good and bad.
There's no emotions. Emotions aren't good or bad. They're not all just happy or sad. They just are. And it's okay to feel them, because when you can feel through the spectrum of even the uncomfortable ones, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a bad message.
No.
It just means it's telling you something. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a good message that it's telling you need to work on something, right? So these are things we just have to be really mindful of, and we have to stop judging ourselves on them. That's a really big thing, because I know that whole love and light movement was all like, oh, well, there must be something wrong if you can't stay up here. And
it's called spiritual bypass.
you don't learn, and you don't learn anything that way. If you are suppressing all the negative stuff and pretending you're living up here, the negative stuff has to bubble up. It's just
spiritual bypass. SB backwards is BS.
Basically,
since everything's inverted, right? So this is fantastic. This is really a nice
and you're right.
to have.
She says, and we grow each time too, and we absolutely do, for paying attention to it. And those times we thought were negative can sometimes be the thing that gave you the best boost, and you can be thankful for them.
Yeah, totally.
And I can think of things in my life where I thought, was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And then it ended up being probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it changed me profoundly and gave me strength I didn't know I had.
Something had to shift maybe. And that's just it. The universe shifted it for you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times people think if it's not their idea that their life is happening to them. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just that you're meant to be on a different path, and it's creating that pathway, that doorway, or that road for you, the avenue for you to go down. Right.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I'm just reading, feeling emotions is a good mind-body decision. Lacking the acknowledging of emotions means that you will come out another way, usually in a form of illness. Right. The lack of acknowledging will usually come out in some sort of illness or aches and pains or whatever. It's stifling when you don't acknowledge that you actually have them.
That's what a lot of when you look at thoughts happen in the etheric world before they land in the physical sort of illnesses. It could be an unprocessed emotion. It could be spiritual sabotage. Somebody's kept a person from connecting, so they feel like they're imploding because they know there's more, but aren't given permission to get it. Everything happens in the etheric first, for sure. And that's why all the gut illnesses, some of it may be from glyphosates and all the poisons, but some of it is because that's where we process emotions. And people are taught your emotions make you weak. You got to be resilient. And although I agree with that, we started talking earlier about Catherine Austin Fitts, and it's getting on to an hour now, so I'm not going to go into that. But that could be another conversation, talking about the financial markets. Like I know we talked about the banks and that, but she had said quite a bit more. But understanding how the structure, until the structure changes, that greed is king. we're going to be fighting this for a while. And if we're getting tired, then we need to go and we need to go at them and just understand what's wrong with the structure and explain why they need to be on a blockchain. Because if we take the greed out of the government and the institutions and anybody who gets taxpayer money, what's the motive going to be to do the deeds that they're doing now? Greed is still one of the biggest ones. Yeah, power, money, you know, I'm going to say fame or whatever those positions in life are part of it. But we can still chip away at this while we still build ourselves up at the same time. We're ambidextrous. We can do both.
I just want to, Robin says she feels extremely heavy, like she's being pushed down. And you know what? I think a lot of us at times do, Robin. And I think sit in that feeling and find out if that's actually you, or is somebody doing that to you? Do you need to clear, like, is somebody oppressing you energetically, and renounce it if it's, you know, if it's all the information too. Maybe take a step back too from all of the video watching. I found doing that is very helpful.
Big step back.
Take a big step back, because
whenever it's too much
we want to know, it does start to feel oppressive. Even the people doing a lot of hopium, and I think sometimes people think we're probably doing hopium, but I just see that there's something much better on the horizon. That's the way I just keep looking at it. And we're walking through hell. We just got to keep going.
Keep going. If you get knocked down,
there is another side to this, and it's going to be glorious. And that is the prize. And just,
if we get knocked down, that's the game of darkness. It's the game. Don't take it personally.
Yeah. And just figure it out and take a step back from some of the things that might be causing the feeling of heaviness. And if it is like being on YouTube, maybe too much, or BitChute or whatever, Odyssey. Actually, I got to say, I'm loving Odyssey. That's going to be my main backup now, because it's actually a lot easier to put things up. It's a lot easier. It feels more like YouTube in a lot of ways. So it's a nice.
Who else is on there? There's a few other people. Big. Yeah, I'm starting to get.
Lots more going on, because it's a much nicer interface.
Harry Cassidy's on there.
It's nicer than Rumble. I don't actually, I haven't put anything up on Rumble in a little while, so I might even close that channel. But BitChute and Odyssey will be my number one. It's where I put things up first. And so I would actually recommend going there. There's lots of, like, Project Camelot is on there. I think they're one of the big ones. Max Egan is on there. Who else is on there? I follow a few people on there now. I just keep finding more.
Yeah, we see them as they show up.
Yeah.
That's right, Jen. You get knocked down, you get back up again. La la la. Like sometimes you decide it's going to be it may be a painful experience, and sometimes it's part of the process as we move through it.
Oh, we feel these things. It's not about wallowing in it. It's recognize it for what it is. Yes. Why is it showing itself to you? And then we move forward. You don't want to stay in a loop of negativity. It's
right. You don't stay there.
Feel it to heal it and move on. Do not stay in it for long. Just recognize where it's coming from. That's key.
So James, are you asking for Betty's link for Odyssey? Is that what you're asking for to put below, Betty? Do you mind putting
it below the video? I've been putting it, if it's, I know it's not below this one right now, but if you go to last week's videos, the Odyssey is there. And it's, I think I put it on Telegram. Telegram, I have to scroll up, so don't bother doing that. I will put up below this one once we're done.
Oh, perfect. So thank you, everyone. Are we finished pretty much for today? Then it's been a good
hour and 3 minutes.
Perfect timing.
And Jason Burmis has his work on Odyssey as well. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, there's some really good people on Odyssey, and I would highly recommend it. We got to get away from this, YouTube bullshit. But it's the easiest place to be where the most people are. But I'm seeing those numbers dwindle on where you can get good information on this platform. And so that's why I keep pushing, Odyssey will be able to go live. We'll be able to do more there. So as that channel grows over on Odyssey, that means I can actually start to upload there and make that the primary channel, and maybe walk away from.
See what happens, right? Who knows what's going to happen. And this is where it's okay to be on both. It's okay to have a backup. All of these things are they're perfect, right? It's just what it's going to be.
And Robin's asking for some healing energy. So everybody, if you can just focus some healing towards Robin, that would be much appreciated. And help her feel a little lighter. Let's recognize what's holding you down, Robin. And so you can push through and start to feel a little lighter and less of that oppression. And Teresa, I love you too. And see, it's already coming your way, Robin. This is the best group of people I have ever encountered in my life. And I thank you all. Thanks for being here. And I apologize for last Friday. I had other things. And I know, Sandy, you had your appliance showing up and you weren't sure if it was going to be at the same time. So it actually worked out for us. And I apologize for not putting it up there. Last week was actually very busy for me. And this week I got knocked down, but I got up again.
Perfect.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is so much fun, just growing together and just sharing and knowing we've got this. Just absolutely amazing feeling.
Yeah. Keep looking forward, guys. Keep looking forward.
For sure. Take care.
Bye.